My name is Ethan Miller, and I died on the 12th of July, 2017. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. For 9 whole minutes, I had no pulse, no breath. My skin was cold. The doctors told my mum to prepare for the worst. But here I am. And what happened during those 9 minutes changed everything. I was just a normal 14-year-old kid from River Grove, Oregon. That morning started like any other summer day. Me begging my mum to take me to Horizon Lake Water Park, even though the sky looked like it might rain any minute. "Please, Mom," I remember saying. "I just need one good day." Something in her eyes softened when I said that. She probably thought I was stressed from school or something. But looking back, it felt like something else was pulling me there, like the day was already written. When we got to the park, I didn't race to the slides like I usually would. Instead, I stood frozen, staring at the biggest one, the one everyone called the Surge. "That's the one," I said, pointing at it. Mum laughed. "It's just a slide, Ethan." I shook my head. "Not today. It's something more." I'll never forget how her smile faded. She could tell I wasn't joking around. Without another word, I walked toward those stairs. Each step felt important somehow. Not scary, not exciting, just necessary. What happened next is mostly a blur. I remember hitting the water and immediately feeling something wrong. Not like a normal current, more like invisible hands grabbing at my legs, pulling me down. I couldn't fight it, didn't even try. I sank deeper and deeper. The noise faded away. The light dimmed. Then nothing. Complete stillness. They told my mum later that I was underwater for just seconds, but without oxygen for 9 whole minutes. No pulse, no signs of life. The paramedics worked on me non-stop. Then suddenly, I shot upright, gasping for air, shouting words I barely remember. "Where is he? It's starting. The gate is already opening." When I came back, I wasn't the same. I could barely speak. My mum was crying, holding me tight, but all I could do was look around like I'd landed on some alien planet, because what I'd seen was more real than anything I'd ever experienced before. The moment I blacked out in that water, I felt myself being pulled, not just out of the pool, but out of my body. Time peeled away, all noise vanished, and then I saw it. A tunnel, not dark like people describe in movies, but made of something clear and glowing, like glass mixed with light. Inside that tunnel, everything felt alive. I wasn't breathing anymore, but I didn't need to. I wasn't seeing with my eyes. I could feel colors. I could hear silence. I understood things nobody had ever taught me. That's when I saw him. A tall figure, glowing brighter than the tunnel itself. Not blinding, comforting, like light with a shape. I didn't hear his voice, but somehow I knew exactly what he was saying. Every word filled my chest without making a sound. I called him the Light Man when I first told my mum, because I didn't want people thinking I was crazy. But deep down, I knew without question it was Jesus. When he looked at me, I felt everything at once. Every good thing I'd ever done, every mistake, every doubt, every hidden part of me I didn't even understand. And yet, I didn't feel judged or shamed. I felt known, fully, deeply, lovingly known. He didn't lecture me about my mistakes or tell me I had to prove myself. He simply showed me who I really was. And when it felt like too much to take in, he reached out his hand and said, "You're seeing behind what's real. Don't be afraid." The moment he said that, something shifted in me. Like my whole life had been waiting for this moment of truth. Not just about heaven, but about why I was born. Everything around us changed. The tunnel faded, and suddenly we were somewhere else, like we'd stepped through time itself. We stood in a massive, open space full of light, but with no sun. No ceiling, no floor, just layers. Each layer felt like it held memories, sounds, and emotions, like invisible fabric woven together. I moved through them without walking. Some layers smelled like flowers I'd never smelled before. One felt like pure laughter. Another vibrated with music that wasn't being played but could be felt inside you. Jesus wasn't next to me anymore. His presence somehow filled every part of who I was. As we moved, I started feeling things I couldn't explain, things that didn't even belong to me. That's when he showed me something I'll never forget. Threads of light stretching through the air like glowing cords. Some were strong and bright, others were dim or broken. "These are prayers, Ethan," he said. I didn't get it at first. I thought prayers were just words, but he told me they were alive. Each one carried a heartbeat. Some had been spoken in desperation, some were whispered in silence, and some had died before they ever reached heaven, not because God didn't care, but because the people praying them gave up. That broke me. I felt their sorrow. I saw prayers from people who had cried out just once and never spoke again. But Jesus didn't ignore them. He remembered everyone. He pointed to one stream of light. That one was your mum's, and I saw it the night she cried herself to sleep, asking God why he was silent. I had no idea she'd ever prayed like that, but Jesus reached into that broken prayer and brought it back to life. "Nothing is lost to me," he said. He took me to a place I still don't have words for. It looked like a field, but the sky moved like water, and the ground felt like it could breathe. Floating above were glowing stones, each one humming softly, each carrying a name. "These are people," Jesus said. "People who almost made it. People who stopped believing at the edge." I cried when I heard that. So many were so close. But instead of judgment, Jesus touched one of the stones, and it burst into music like a voice being restored. "Even the ones who stop, I don't forget them," he said. The whole place was full of love, but also a quiet warning. If we stop too soon, we miss what was already waiting for us. I realized I wasn't there to stay. I was there to see and bring it back. We moved again, without walking, without even deciding to move. Everything just responded to Jesus. We arrived at what looked like a garden, but not like anything on earth. Everything was alive in a way that made you feel like it knew you were there. The trees swayed without wind. The flowers gave off a feeling, not a sound. Even the dirt had warmth, like it had a heartbeat. In the center was a pond that didn't reflect your face, it reflected your soul. I looked down and saw moments I'd buried, times I felt small, scared, unseen. As soon as I saw them, the garden wrapped around me like a blanket. Not physically, but spiritually. Jesus sat beside me at that pond. We didn't speak for a while. Then he said something I'll never forget. "This is where I bring the ones who are too tired to carry their pain anymore." He told me healing doesn't always come from miracles or loud prayers. Sometimes it comes in stillness and surrender. Most people never find this place because they're too busy, too afraid to slow down, or too convinced they have to be strong all the time. But here, the only strength needed is letting go. I asked him why some people never get to feel this peace. He looked at me with eyes that held the whole world and said, "Because they won't stop long enough to let me bring them here." That broke something in me. I'd always thought God was far away, but now I knew he'd been waiting the whole time. Jesus stood and reached out his hand again. We rose together, not into the sky, but into something I can only call time. I saw Earth again, but not like a globe, more like a living, beating heart with people's choices lighting it up. He showed me cities glowing with prayer, families protected by quiet faith, kids singing to God in their bedrooms when no one else knew. But then he showed me places where the light was fading, not because of evil, but because of distraction. places where people were too focused on success, comfort, noise. I saw pastors who once heard his voice but now only chased applause. Churches where the spirit had been replaced by spectacle. The enemy doesn't always destroy, Jesus said. Sometimes he just distracts. I asked what would happen to those places, those people who used to burn with faith but had grown cold. His face turned serious, and the silence felt heavier than anything I'd felt before. Then he pointed to tiny sparks scattered like stars across the darkness. "These are my sent ones," he said. "Some are children, some are elders. Most are hidden in plain sight, but they carry fire." Looking closer, I realized some of those sparks were kids just like me. Teenagers praying alone, even when no one understood them. Kids waking up in the night with tears in their eyes, not knowing why. These were the ones holding the line. "What happens if they stop?" I asked. That's when I saw it. Everything started to dim, slowly, quietly, like a light being turned down, one soul at a time. Jesus looked away for just a second. That's all it took. The map began shrinking. The light flickered in more places than I could count. "If they stop burning," he said softly, "the final veil will begin to fall." I didn't fully understand, but I could feel it in my bones. Time was short, not in a scary way, but in an urgent way. We weren't waiting for the end. We were holding it back with our worship, our obedience, our prayers. That's when it hit me. I wasn't sent back just to tell a story. I was being given an assignment. Jesus turned to me and said, "Now go." It wasn't a suggestion. It was a calling. I didn't want to leave. The peace I felt there. I've never felt anything like it before or since, but I knew I had to. There were people waiting who needed to hear this. When I woke up in the hospital, I couldn't speak for 3 days. I just laid there staring out the window, watching the wind move the trees. My mum sat by my side the whole time, praying over me. When I finally found my voice, the first thing I said was, "It's already moving." She looked confused. I didn't explain everything right away, but slowly started sharing what Jesus had shown me. At first, I thought no one would believe me, but the more I spoke, the more people began to cry. Some told me they'd been having dreams too. Others said they'd felt something changing but couldn't explain it. That's when I realized I wasn't the only one. There are others out there who've seen, who've heard, who are carrying the fire. I began noticing things I hadn't before. When I'd walk into a room, I could feel the atmosphere, sense who was hurting, who felt unseen, who was ready to give up. It wasn't like hearing voices, more like a knowing deep inside, like Jesus had left part of himself in me. I don't want attention. I don't want people thinking I'm special, because I'm not. I'm just a match. One spark in what I believe is a wildfire God is lighting in my generation. But the more time I spent praying, reading the Bible, just sitting in silence, the clearer everything became. When I got caught up in too much noise, phones, games, social media, the light would dim. I could feel it leave. That's when I realized this isn't just about telling people what happened. It's about helping them hear what's already calling out to them. One night after youth group, I told some kids, some of us weren't called to live long. We were called to live loud. Not loud with volume, but with truth, with purpose, with fire. I think that's what Jesus showed me, that there are people watching this right now who feel different. You don't fit in. You cry when no one else does. You feel things too deeply. You dream about things that don't make sense. That's not a curse. That's a signal. You're not broken. You're born for this. God is calling a generation that will speak when others stay silent, that will choose purity when the world chooses compromise, that will burn with love even when it costs everything. If you've watched this far, then maybe you're one of them. Maybe you've felt God stirring something in you but weren't sure if it was real. This is your confirmation. He's speaking, he's calling, and he's waiting for you to answer. Don't wait until it's convenient. Don't wait until you feel ready. Because the truth is, he doesn't call the ready. He calls the willing. So open your heart, speak truth, love boldly, pray like heaven is listening, because it is. If this story spoke to something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video. Subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling us what part of the message stirred something in you. You never know who else might need to hear what you've been holding on to. This isn't just a story. This is a wake-up call, and it's only the beginning. My name is Ethan Miller, and I died on the 12th of July, 2017.